there to make you a better. Now, power is interesting. Power is like a trump card. It increases your ability to persuade and influence. Does that uniform on a police officer increase their ability to persuade and influence you? It does, doesn't it? The car, the white jacket, the degrees on the wall, the lawyers, you know, their credibility, their expertise increase their ability to persuade and influence. And you want to come across that way as an expert. Power is really interesting. Just by wearing a white coat, people assume that maybe you're a doctor or a pharmacist. A good friend in Pittsburgh went through residency, finally became a doctor, had his white coat on, and he was just so amazed that he could walk into a room with a perfect stranger and say, "Please take off your clothes." And they would. Have you not thought about this? You don't know who this person, white coat, take off your clothes. It's one of those knee-jerk reactions, right? You've been taught your whole life not to take your clothes off. All of a sudden, white coat, clothes are off. That's power. It's a knee-jerk reaction. You know, it can be good, it can be bad, and people play on that sometimes. That power that people have. In fact, it reminds me to tell you a story about, it's actually a joke, about this young man. He wanted to become a pharmacist. He wanted to have that white coat, and so he'd come on, put the white coat, and he was working for this pharmacist, but he was terrible. People would leave, they wouldn't buy anything, he couldn't find anything, he would get all flustered, he would get nervous, and the pharmacist was just losing all this money. And he went up and says, "Look, I like you as a person, but this is not working out. If you don't sell something to the next person, I'm going to have to fire you." Which compounded his nervousness. He didn't know what to do. He was just nervous. And somebody came in and they were coughing and coughing. He's like, "I got to get rid of this cough. I have a meeting. What do you have that will cure this cough?" And he was nervous. He couldn't find the cough medicine, didn't know what to do. And then he pulled out a whole box of X-Lax. He says, "Here, take all of these. It'll cure your cough." White coat, okay. He took the whole bottle and he left, went outside and he leaned against a pole. And the pharmacist came and said, "What are you doing? I know you sold some, but you sold the wrong thing. X-Lax doesn't cure cough." He says, "Well, sure it does. He's afraid to cough." Sorry, I had to tell you that. Took a little second for some of you. But that's power. It can be a good thing. It can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, just like with persuasion. It's important when you understand human nature. It's a very powerful skill. And of course, the last one is motivation. That's your call to action. That's what you want people to do. You're useless as a persuader if people say, "Hey, great presentation," and then they didn't buy anything. You know, you can give great presentations and do a lot of different things, but it's all about the call to action. What do you want your audience to do? Wherever you're at. That's motivation. We'll talk about that today. So as you look at the great pie of persuasion, and this is what really frustrates me, because I've read thousands of studies, hundreds of books, I've been to all the seminars, what's working, what's not working, because there's so many different camps out there, there's so many different pieces of the persuasion pie. What I found out is they're all a small piece of the persuasion pie, but some people get so focused on just one of these areas. So the first one is the Dale Carnegie camp. Again, it's important, but they just learn it's all about the people skills. Learn the people skills and you'll be okay. And you'll make a lot of friends. You won't sell much, but you'll make a lot of friends. People skills are important. But things that even change there, they teach you, to go into somebody's office, right, and see what's on the wall. And people don't like that useless chit-chat anymore sometimes. And here's the strange thing that we're noticing. So a lot more and more people, you have to be able to read them, want to get right to the point. But this is what happens, which really destroys a lot of people. They come in, there's some chit-chat, there's some pleasantries, you're bonding, and all of a sudden, they go into a presentation. And their demeanor changes, doesn't it? And all of a sudden, the prospect's thinking, what? Whoa, something's changed. They're a different person now. And that really sabotages your ability to persuade. And that's true when people go into their clothes. They're all nervous. "Oh, now I'm going to ask for the credit card. I'm going to do it now." And their demeanor changes, and it really confuses your prospect. It should be seamless all the way through. People skills are important, but just a small piece of the persuasion pie. And then there's closing skills. People say, Brian Tracy says, learn more closing skills. And they do have their place. But I think you should spend more time opening people up. I think closing skills are mostly when you've blown it in the beginning. Because when you get to your product or service idea, they should want your product. You shouldn't have to close them. I think closing skills is like trying to get a kiss after a bad date. Yeah, it just might happen, right? Just that last-ditch effort. They've given you all the signs. They wouldn't hold your hand. They didn't like you, and all of a sudden you go for the kiss. That's closing skills. Now, there's a time and place for closing skills, but there's a bigger piece of the pie. Then again, power. A lot of people throw their weight around. Do it or else. Do it or you're fired. If you have a boss that was military for good.